Baseball has a billion-dollar time bomb about to explode. The game's financial landscape is spiraling thanks to a loophole, deferred money. Unlike other sports, MLB has no salary cap and imposes no limits on deferrals, allowing contracts to balloon into gargantuan sums, like Shohei Ohtani's $700 million deal, which pushes 97% of his salary to be paid after his retirement. This workaround lets the Dodgers sign superstars without major upfront costs, but it also fuels disputes over fair compensation, payroll manipulation, and long-term financial sustainability. While it works for now, the system's current trajectory threatens the sport's competitiveness and risks another strike, like the one in 1994. As always, if you enjoy, please leave a like and consider subscribing. In contrast to the NFL or NBA, where contracts can be non-guaranteed or heavily incentive-based, baseball players receive every dollar of their deals, regardless of performance or injuries. Steven Strasburg's contract is a prime example. Washington owes him every penny of his $245 million deal, even though injuries forced him into early retirement. The Nationals didn't insure the deal, meaning there's no relief, no buyout, no safety net. The reality makes the idea of a fail-safe salary worth considering. Should there be a cap on what a player can earn if they can't perform? Anthony Rendon, for example, has barely played since signing his 7-year, $245 million contract with the Angels, yet he continues to collect his full salary without stepping on the field on a consistent basis. In what other profession does that exist? Curt fight for free agency changed baseball forever, allowing players to earn fair market value. But the way contracts have evolved raises the question of whether the system has become too unregulated. In 1975, the average salary was just under $45,000, which adjusts to around $263,000 today. In 1990, it was nearly $600K, $1.45 million adjusted. Now, the average is $4.66 million, far outpacing inflation. For an MLB minimum wage comparison, in 2000, it was $200K, just under $369 after adjusting for inflation. Whereas in 2025, it sits at $760,000. That's more than double the minimum salary relative to the time period in just 25 years. Deferred contracts are not a new revelation. They've been a part of baseball for decades. Some accounts suggest Ted Williams had one of the earliest such deals, though the details remain a mystery. Teams have gotten creative to spread out the financial burden, give players a financial cushion, or even just to avoid paying full salaries in one go. One example is Catfish Hunter's deal in the 1970s, where part of his salary was paid out through an insurance annuity. And then there's Bruce Sutter, who continued to receive deferred money from his 1984 contract into the 2020s. In 2000, the Mets famously set up Bobby Bonilla with a deal that pays him about $1.2 million every July 1st, his eponymous day, as part of a 25-year arrangement that began in 2011. Oh, and the Orioles have their own tab, paying him $500,000 a year through 2029 on a separate 25-year deal. Notable recent cases include Max Scherzer's deferred payout from the Nationals and Chris Davis's 15-year agreement with the Orioles. The Dodgers have certainly embraced this strategy in recent years, but they did not create the blueprint. They've just made it more of a standard practice. They have deferred over $1 billion in contracts, with stars like Shohei Ohtani, Freddie, Freeman, Mookie Betts, and others set to receive payments long after their playing careers end. To put it in perspective, only the Mets and Red Sox exceed $50 million in current deferrals. Combine this with large signing bonuses like those for Yoshinobu, Yamamoto, and Blake Snell help the Dodgers lock in top talent while managing financial impact. This strategy paid off in 2024 with a World Series win, and they hope to win several more throughout the 2020s. Other teams also use deferrals, but not to the same degree. Many active players have contributed to the growing trend, such as Rafael, Chris Sale, Christian Yelich, Francisco Lindor, JT Realmuto, Nolan Arenado, Juan Soto, and Alex Bregman. Shohei Ohtani's $700 million deal took this to the next level. Instead of the Dodgers paying him $70 million a year up front, Ohtani structured his contract to receive only $2 million annually for the first 10 years, with the remainder of his salary being distributed over the subsequent decade. This allows his contract to register as only $46 million on the books for competitive balance tax purposes, giving the Dodgers more flexibility to invest in other players. Yankees owner Steinbrenner got a lot of backlash for saying the Dodgers' spending habits aren't financially sustainable for teams like his. Coming from a big market owner with a $300 million payroll, this is extremely ironic. But for small to mid-market teams, there's some truth to it. Organizations like the Marlins, Pirates, Guardians, Brewers, Rays, and Athletics operating on tight budgets don't have that luxury. Even if one of those teams matched or exceeded the Dodgers' offer, a player might still choose LA for its star-studded roster and championship potential. Case in point, Tanner Scott and Teoscar Hernandez took less money to join the Dodgers. It's not just about finances, it's about winning. The gap will only widen as the Dodgers continue loading up on talent year after year. Their latest spending spree has pushed their 2025 luxury tax payroll to $390 million, with penalties likely pushing total costs over $500 million. For perspective, the CBT for 2025 is set at $241 million. Guggenheim Partners, the Dodgers ownership group, has a unique advantage. As a global investment firm, they're able to reinvest the money saved by deferring payments. The idea is that they can leverage these funds over the next few years to generate returns that will cover their future costs. It's a gamble on growing wealth faster than inflation and future payroll obligations, something many other MLB owners aren't willing to risk. On top of that, they hold the biggest TV deal in the league, a 25-year, $8.35 billion contract signed in 2013. Meanwhile, the Mets made a splash with Juan Soto's 15-year, $765 million deal, a bold investment that includes no deferred payments but a hefty $75 million signing bonus. Soto's a generational hitter, but his defensive shortcomings and the uncertainty of maintaining elite production through his late 30s or 40s, especially if injuries arise, raise red flags. After all, only 1% of players last 20 years or more in their careers. The contract also includes a wrinkle. Soto can opt out after 2029, or the Mets can lock him in with a $4 million raise to $55 million annually for the remaining 10 years. While the Mets are set to carry a $300 million payroll for a third consecutive year, concerns about long-term sustainability don't seem to faze owner Steve Cohen, who's more than willing to spend heavily to ensure the team remains competitive. The offseason also saw Alex Bregman secure a 3-year, $120 million contract, making him the highest-paid infielder in the game. At a $40 million AAV, it surpasses big names like Francisco Lindor, Carlos Correa, and Corey Seager. Naturally, it includes $20 million in annual deferrals and opt-outs after the 2025 and 2026 seasons. Bregman's deal raised eyebrows due to his declining offensive numbers. In 2024, he ranked 36th in batting average, 23rd in home runs, 39th in RBIs, and 28th in OPS+ among infielders. His Gold Glove defense is a major component of his value, but his shift to second base, a less premium position than third, only adds to the perplexity of his salary. No second baseman other than Bregman is among the top 10 highest paid infielders. Jose Altuve, the second highest paid at the position, earns $10 million less. Bregman's deal also stood out because no other team came close to matching Boston's offer. Both Soto and Bregman are represented by Scott Boras, whose use of opt-outs is a growing trend in MLB contracts. These opt-outs let players chase more money year after year, but they only add to the problem, raising the bar for salaries and flooding the market with top-tier talent. It doesn't always work out, just ask Blake Snell, who had to settle for a shorter-term deal with the Giants in 2024 after his asking price was too high. It's hard to believe that 6 years ago, Mike Trout, the undisputed best player in baseball at the time, signed an extension that paid him just over $37 million annually, and it felt like a huge amount for any player. As the 2026 CBA expiration nears, owners are pushing for a salary cap while players fear its consequences. A salary cap reins in team expenditures and promotes parity, but restricts player earnings and mitigates big market advantages. The days of stacking superstars would end, forcing teams to rely on strategy instead of financial firepower. Without a cap, contracts will continue inflating as free agents chase record deals from deep-pocketed teams. To work effectively, a cap would require a salary floor, which stops teams from hoarding revenue-sharing money instead of investing in talent. This would eliminate low payrolls where owners simply cash checks, ensuring a higher baseline for competition. A potential downside is that a floor could lead to reckless spending, overpaying mid-level free agents just to hit the minimum. The Athletics' recent splurge showed the consequences. After years of minimal payroll commitments, they were essentially forced to open their checkbook, signing Luis Severino, acquiring Jeffrey Springs, and extending Brent Rooker to avoid a grievance with the Major League Baseball Players Association. They even handed out a record $1.5 million bonus to two-way Japanese prospect Shotaro Mori. Whether this issue could be addressed through targeted exemptions or another safeguard remains to be seen. In baseball's last labor dispute, Jeff Passan reported in February of 2022 that MLB proposed a $100 million salary floor with a $180 million CBT threshold, with overages subsidizing lower revenue teams. The union rejected it. Fast forward to now, and a more realistic proposal could set the floor at $120 million and the cap at $200 million. A significant increase, but still conservative given inflation and market trends. These numbers would likely need frequent adjustments to keep up with rising costs. For reference, in 2025, 9 teams are below a hypothetical $120 million floor, including 2 playoff teams from last year, the Brewers and Guardians. Meanwhile, 11 teams are above a $200 million limit, with the Dodgers and Mets pushing past $300 million. Fixing this imbalance will take years. Expect some form of grandfathering for teams already locked into massive payrolls. The way to do it? Increase league-wide revenue sharing, tied to a percentage of total MLB revenue. And to keep teams from exploiting the system, penalties for violating the cap or floor would have to be severe. Loss of first-round draft picks, massive fines, and international spending restrictions. Without real consequences, teams will find loopholes, just like they always have. Tony Clark, the executive director of the MLBPA, is expecting a lockout after the 2026 season. Should this happen, it will force the league to choose between allowing super teams to dominate or enforcing a financial reset to balance the playing field. A solution might include limiting salary deferrals, similar to those in the NBA, where players can only defer 25% of their salary, and the NFL, where it's 50%, to prevent teams from manipulating payrolls. But such a move could trigger a strike, and a scenario like the 1994 lockout would risk canceling a World Series. Would fans accept another lost season over this dispute? Probably not. Let's hope owners and players can find common ground before baseball faces another crisis. Thank you all for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Later.